Super Rugby AU Round 5. The Melbourne Rebels are actually going to play in Melbourne. First time in quite some time. 2 games this weekend. You got Rebels, Waratahs in Melbourne, and then the Reds hosting the Force up in Brisbane. So, yep, Friday game, Saturday game. On paper, both of these games look like the home sides should kind of walk it in, but I guess we'll go through the squads, some of the odds, the stats, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how you think these ones might play out. The first game, Rebels and the Waratahs. The Rebels are actually third, despite having a losing record with 1 win and 2 losses. Remember, the 2 losses have been pretty tight, so they've picked up losing bonus points in their game. Whereas the Waratahs, barring a slight improved performance, well, a decently improved performance against the Force, have not looked the business thus far, but they've had a bye. They've had a chance to reset and regather themselves, and hopefully they come out a better team for having had a break. Like if there's a time maybe they needed a bye, that kind of came at a pretty good time, so they can recalibrate. In terms of the lineups, the Rebels at home, man, I hope they get some decent fans out there. If you are in Melbourne and you're not, I guess, concerned about going to a place with other people. I mean, I'd like to attend Blues games as much as I can, despite the pandemic and whatnot. If it's safe and you're happy to go, I would say get along to the game, man. It's been a while. They could use the support. Elof, Hansen, and Fa'amusili is a pretty good-looking front row. They may be looking to dominate. Cummins and Hosea is the second row. Kemeny, Hardwick, Wells, back row. So it's pretty much the same team, except, Ross Halapeti is suspended. Powell and Tamua, same 19 combo. They've been pretty effective. Tamua, his kicking percentage, I think, must be pretty good, but he's missed a few. I think Hodgie has missed at least one as well. Hodge is there as well at 12. Li'i is at 13. Anderson and Korobeti are the wings. Korobeti still hasn't managed a try yet, but he's been still tearing it up. His attacking stats are phenomenal. And Pincus is there at 15. Uelese is back on the bench, which is good news. Tuttle's on the bench. Leota's on the bench. Sodoni. So, yeah, it's a pretty stable lineup for the Rebels, you would have to say. For the Tars, again, kind of like a few changes. Sam Wykes actually comes into the squad. I think he's been injured, but a good veteran to have in and maybe settle some kind of young minds. Again, when you've had 3 losses in a row, it's easy to get down. Harry Johnson, Holmes, Parecki, and Faulkner front row. Sinclair and Caird second row. Swinton and Tizano 6-7 plus Dempsey at 8. Pretty good looking back row. The battle there should be good. Wells up against his old team in New South Wales. There's no Jack Wetton this week, so he's... I didn't see that he's injured, but he's just not named anyway. Grant and Harrison is 9-10. Remember, Jake Gordon got injured in the first game of the season, so Grant's had to step up to the plate. Harrison's been pretty radar accurate with his goal kicking, but they haven't exactly been giving them that many chances to score points. Moeroa and Newsom 12-13. That combo against Hodge and Li'i will be fascinating. Ram, Maddox, and Nawani Tawase is 11, 14, and 15. So Nawani Tawase is still fullback and Maddox is still wing. Maybe that combination seems to work a bit better for what the Waratahs are trying to do. Foketi's on the bench. Like I mentioned, Sam Wykes. Horton's on the bench. And... yeah, they've not scored a lot of tries. Between them, they've played 6 games. The Waratahs have got 3 tries, so averaging 1 a game, and the Rebels have got 2. And they scored both of those in their last games. They went 2 games with no tries. But, remember, Tamua's been kicking a lot of penalties. So they don't need penalties, well, they don't need tries to beat you. They can keep the scoreboard ticking over. It seems to be the strategy with Dave Vessels and the boys this season. The Waratahs scrum power will be tested because, like I said, their scrum's not been very successful. It's had a pretty 70-something% success rate, which is not good. And the Rebels, despite having 1 fewer try, have actually had a more cutting attack. Like clean breaks, they've had 30 to the Tars 16 in the same number of games, so almost double. I would say half of those are probably Marika, to be fair. Run meters 1,176 in 3 games. The Rebels less than 1,928 for the Waratahs. So if the Rebels can click and they actually opt for tries, it could be a long day at the office. But the Tars were improved in that last game. I think their tackling percentage, believe it or not, is actually higher than the Rebels, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, the clean breaks may be the killer. The TAB, which is the bookies over here in New Zealand, tab if you're in Australia, has got the Rebels by 12. Rugby Forecast algorithm also has the Rebels by 12. So pretty comfortable favourites in their game against the Tars. The next game, the Reds and the Force, I think it's also, if we look at the odds, it will be heavily favoured for the Reds. The Reds are 3-0. Famous away victory last week against the Brumbies in what is probably one of the best games you'll see. I think that game was free to air as well, which is quite the advert for rugby. Whereas the Force and the Rebels game last week, in terms of easiness on the eye, was maybe lacking a wee bit. But yeah, the Reds will be absolutely full of confidence. They've kept things relatively stable. The Force, likewise, are pretty stable, so they're not making huge changes after a narrow loss themselves last week. Xander Murphy and Tupou is the front row for the Reds. Blythe and Salakai Loto are the second row. Salakai Loto is a really good guy to have back. I know they've got Udu as well, who's a proper ball-running lock, but Salakai Loto, with his running game and his ball handling, is vital, I think, to what they do. They look a better team when he's there. Scott Young, McCrate and Wilson, very good back row. They're missing Liam Wright still, but you wouldn't know it. McCrate's really stepped up. Scott Young's been good as well. McDermott and Jock, 9 and 10. James O'Connor's been kicking at like 90-something stupid percent. 90.8, I think, percent. Really, really good effort from him. Paisami and Pataya are the midfield. Remember, Stewart, I think, was dropped for like an alcohol breach a week ago, but he is back on the bench this week, but it's still his 12 jerseys occupied by Paisami. Droa Sese is on the left wing because Dalguna's pulled out for this one from personal reasons. Vunivalu's on the right wing and Jock Campbell is at fullback. So, yeah, pretty stable. Painga Moses on the bench. Udu, like I mentioned. Hegarty, Hoopert. Yeah, they're going to be tough. The Force, Robertson, Kautu'u and Holmes. Holmes is 150th game. Most of those for the Reds. So it's quite an interesting one for him to get his 150th Super Rugby game in Queensland. I'm sure he'll relish that one, running out in front of, hopefully. Likewise, if you're in Brisbane, get to the game, cheer him on. 150 games is a big effort, even if he's playing for the opposition now. Thrush and Sitaleki Tomani are the second row, so he's come into the squad. Straight impact for him. Lee Warner's blind side. Koteka is open side, and he's been good. Good work rate. Better than he gets credit for in attack. It's hard because he's got some big performers around him, but he's still been good, and Stunder is there. Mr. Consistent at 8. Kubeli's still 9 ahead of Pryor, so Pryor's on the bench. McIntyre continues on at 10. Still no sight of Domingo Miotti, but apparently Miotti's heading off to Europe at the end of the season. So, yeah, I don't think he'll get much game time, which is disappointing because he's a good player. Teifu and Kuridrani, good midfield, but Kuridrani is obviously the most experienced of the four of them, but he's not really been able to kind of dominate yet. But with Teifu moving to 12, it means Kahui's on the left wing. Hopefully he's got the legs for it, the old boy, but he's been alright. Ralston's on the right wing and Carney is on at 15. So it's one of the older, Ralston's still relatively young, but one of the older back threes you will see at Super Rugby level for sure. Medrano's on the bench, Macaulay. Anstey's back, which is good news. McGregor, Braki. There's no Pulu for this one. But yeah, Force's goal kicking's been at 70%. Like I mentioned, James O'Connor, 90 plus. I think if the Force are going to have a shot, they're going to probably need to take as many chances as they can. So let's hope for their sake the goal kicking is at a higher number. And the Red scrum, unsurprisingly, is clocking in at 100%. It is a dominant strike weapon for the Reds. The Force are at 84%, which is solid. But man, Holmes and Robertson will have to be totally on their game because the Fords and the Reds are just a monster of a thing. Clean breaks for both the sides is 28 to the Reds, 17 for the Force this season. The Reds attack has been on fire. The Force failed to click, but again, it's hard because they brought so many guys in together, so you feel like it's still a work in progress, but it is getting better. It'll need to be better in this game. The bookies have got the Reds by 14. The Rugby Forecast algorithm goes slightly less confident with 12, but either way, as I mentioned at the start of the video, both of these home sides are predicted to go in and get 1 try plus wins over the opposition. Probably 2 tries, really. But yeah, we'll see. So far, the Super Rugby AU games have been remarkably close, whereas in Aotearoa we've seen a few blowouts. I mean, the Waratahs have been on the end of a few blowouts as well. It's not been exclusively close games, but in the last couple of weeks it's been very good. May that continue. Yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on these games. Can you see either of the away teams picking up a sneaky away win, or do you think the Reds and the Rebels will be too good? You guys let me know your thoughts. Talk to you soon. See you later.